Hi, it's James Withall, CEO of Rupert Resources. Thanks for your time again. Just want to talk to you a bit about, obviously, the market's probably with Matthew today, but also just to reiterate how good this Ikkari discovery is and how we're advancing it to the next steps over the time ahead.
James, thanks for coming back on the show. And yes, you've guessed right. I do want to talk about the markets, given your background, and of course we'll get on to what's happening at Ikkari and fundraisers, etc. So if we do look at the markets, there's a bit of turmoil, lots of people with opinions out there. But one thing's that we can all agree on is that the price of gold equities has headed south for the last 4 weeks. So what's your take on what's happening?
Look, I think maybe gold's a bit, we had that great rally in gold through 2000. The shares had a reasonable rally, but, plenty of people watching this will be going, how, $2,000 gold, a few years ago, obviously we've been here a little bit before, but, you would have never thought gold shares would be at the levels that they are in terms of, the relative underperformance, given, gold price at its current levels, inflation easing off a bit, the margins these producers, they're making a lot of money, these production companies as well. So it seems as though people are maybe unconvinced about what will happen next with the gold price.
Okay, they're unconvinced about what's happening with the gold price, but like I say, at 2,000 gold, or even sort of just slightly above 1,900 now, that's still good for gold producers, but for developers or explorers, it doesn't really mean too much. So how do we retail interpret what's going on? This erratic behavior, this volatility in the marketplace. Should we be jumping off the ship and sort of going elsewhere, or just biding our time? How do we play this?
If you're in this space, you have to be you've got to be a patient investor with this thing, and with all stocks really, and you just have to make the most of these opportunities. Our stock has fallen from the mid fours down to lower 380. We're about sitting around $4 again. Fundamentally, nothing has changed with the company. In fact, we just put out a press release the other day. I'm very comfortable. Things look really good. Our team on site are hitting all the goals that I want them to hit, and the project in our minds just gets better and better and shows how good it is. So I guess I just, as an investor side, I just look at these as opportunities. I think we did a study. We did a study and put it out November last year at 1,650 for gold. It's now still around 2,000. So nothing's changed. And the average gold price, trending average gold price, continues to rise. So if you look at our study at current gold prices, the valuation opportunity is phenomenal in ours, I believe, in many.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, you understand why investors are a little bit nervous, because gold price is doing its thing, equities not so much. People seem to be putting the blame firmly at the door of the US debt ceiling discussions, as they do every year. Is it as simple as that, or is there more to it?
Well, it's uncertainty, isn't it? And every year since 2008, we're been in this situation. I think I can't remember a year that we haven't been. Maybe it's got resolved a little bit quicker in some periods and not. So I don't, and every time there's a lot of conjecture about what the gold price should do, up or down, around the reaction to it. I guess it's the uncertainty that it creates that creates the investment opportunity. So I think you're better off just looking at it like that. I mean, fundamentally, I don't think there shouldn't be any step change in the gold price either way. Ultimately, we're still globally in a situation which is very supportive for gold, and I think will continue to be. So I think again, look around at the opportunities it creates by people maybe getting worried at this situation. I think that's that. Yeah, I guess maybe I'm a bit too glass half full on this in terms of always looking for opportunities rather than and looking to worrying about negatives. But I guess that comes down back to our strategy and quality assets, etc., and having a business that's not based on something that's that sensitive to the gold price. it's sensitive in a positive way, because if the gold price goes higher, it's worth even more, but it's not sensitive to a lower gold price.
Okay, well, let's talk about fundamentals, and let's talk about the plan. Okay, you recently raised just shy of $48 million. I'm not quite sure what your cash position is off the back of that. So that's all positive. Invest in the fundamentals. Nothing has changed other than the market conditions. So what are we looking to? What are you going to do with this money? Why is this going to be a better project at the end of the year compared to where it is now?
We're sitting on, I guess, the financials that come out soon for the end of February. But with that money, on the order of 70 million Canadian dollars when it came in on the balance sheet. So, very good position to be in. We have only just started putting drill results out from last winter because, the usual delays in assays and things that come through. And so that's why, there's been a bit of a drought, people would say, in our news flow. But look, we finally got some, really stellar Ikkari results back out to demonstrate people that it gets, we potentially improve the grade, that could end up improving the fundamentals of the free cash flows that could come out of this asset, which is absolutely key to it. So our real focus on and how we allocate the money is continuing to add value to the drill bit through exploration, both at Ikkari, making it bigger, demonstrating that it's still open, drilling these other targets. We'll hopefully get some news out on other exploration targets soon that we've been drilling. And then all the other de-risking work that's going on, starting the pre-feasibility study, environmental permitting, that's progressed a long way since we last spoke. We're formally into that process of permitting this project now. And so, expanded our team again. We've got a great study manager joined. So I think it's investing in the business and the people and driving the project forward. I think, over the next, we hope to put a new resource, an updated resource out for the project we're thinking I guess, early part of Q4 this year. So typical time for us, sort of September. And that'll, could demonstrate again, this is an absolutely outstanding discovery, one of the few discoveries that's been made in the last 10 years in the sector.
Right. Okay. But I hear what you're saying, but what I want to get to is kind of reasons to believe in, Rupert Resources and what it's doing. Yes, I buy your argument. You're down 20% from the beginning of the month. So if you can get back to those dizzy heights, there's a 25% gain for investors. But it's also going to be predicated on the model going forward. We've seen a few companies change tack in this market because not getting the reaction through the drill bit, and they've kind of segued over into, we're talking about, early production. You've got a big project in front of you. Are you going to change tack? Are you going to look at that kind of early revenue model, or are you sticking to your guns as to how you kind of progress and build out the value of this particular project?
I don't think changing tack. You've got to keep on with the mission. We set this. I actually reflected on our business strategy that we presented to shareholders on the board back in 2019, starting this exploration yesterday, and we set out a plan that our plan was to make a high quality discovery of scale. And if we achieve that, and knowing from my background in exploration and investment for 20 odd years, that the cost that you have to go through to achieve it and the mechanism you have to go through to achieve it. If you do that over time, you generate a phenomenal annualized return for investors. And ultimately, anything that takes you off that course and distracts you and say, I'll make a short-term return here, that has every chance of increasing the risk to the investors and damaging that business model that you set up in the beginning to generate these really outstanding annualized rates of returns, which ultimately investors need in this industry, because it is still a high-risk business. You're investing in resources in the ground. It's a tough business, but I think it's key to not get too distracted, to focus on the main goal, which was to find one of the best, make a significant discovery of very high quality, which we've done, and we'll continue to work through that process in an orderly fashion to get it permitted with the authorities, work with our stakeholders, and to develop this as a phenomenal business for people to be long-term investors in. And it's just sticking to that is what we'll do. Look, we will. We'll work through that process of bringing this to cash flow as soon as we can. But ultimately, we don't want to compromise it. It's too good a business. It's too good an asset. These things are too rare. These sort of discoveries to think about compromising for the short-term concern.
You've just put out some new drilling results from Ikkari showing potential for higher open pit grades, which is great, and further extensions, which is great. But given the scale of this, you've already got eyes on you. We've seen a lot of M&A happening in the marketplace, and you've got to be producing data to be able to advance conversations with those people looking in at this thing, because you've got to help them with the economics. Because we've seen a lot of value destruction with large capex overruns. Obviously, inflation hasn't helped there. So even the big guys are slightly nervous about picking marginal projects. So again, what do you think you're going to be honing in and focusing on in terms of that data that you're going to create for those conversations? Because ultimately, that's the exit for this company. That is the upside for investors, surely.
Let me, can I share a couple of slides, Matt?
Love to. Do you know how to do that?
Yeah, I'll give it a go.
Okay.
So I'll give it a minute. Hopefully that's uploaded to your...
There you go, yeah.
Screen. So I'm going to talk about a couple of slides just to talk about this point. So this is a history of exploration discoveries in the gold sector for the last, 50 odd years. And, in the last, we had a whole period through the 80s, mid 90s, and even the early 2000s, where you had these phenomenal discoveries, Moto, Malartic, Vitor, things like that, Fruta del Norte, in the sort of early parts of 2005, when you had a phenomenal run in the gold price and everyone had phenomenal valuations too. But really, you saw a lot of spending off the back of that, but not many exploration discoveries in the early part 2010 to 2015. But, we have seen Great Bear made their Dixie discovery in 2018. And obviously that, is one of the few discoveries, and Ikkari is probably one of the other very few discoveries that have been made in this period of time. And obviously, companies find other ounces, but I guess then all these discoveries aren't created equally, and this industry hasn't really had a lot of success. So we're an industry that is looking, as you pointed out, on the M&A side, potentially for projects that were going to be the producing assets of the next 20, 30, or possibly 40 years. The other point to point out is obviously we're relatively close to the beginning of what we call the of this graph that's produced by Minex that shows how these discoveries, the good quality discoveries, evolve over time. So we're a couple of years post discovery here, and the point of this chart is making is that in the first couple of years you've probably shown maybe 40% of the potential scale of what could be here. But obviously, as you continue to do your work and continue to stay on the path, which is what I was saying before, and not get distracted and keep your exploration going, the really good quality discoveries of this type of the silk have the potential to still grow substantially. So the point we have to do as a business is to continue to demonstrate how that asset can grow, and obviously, the upside that's there in terms of valuation, and making sure that we represent to interested parties, investors, that opportunity. So we've done a very good job so far of turning $11 an ounce into, whatever we are today, maybe $100 an ounce. But, what we've discovered, our PEA demonstrates that it's probably worth, $374, maybe $400 an ounce on production. But let's go one last slide before you jump in, Matthew. But I think that this is an image of all the drilling we've done, since 2019 in this small area of our license where we've made all these discoveries. Remember, we made 8 discoveries here now. Ikkari is the one on the south where all the drilling is here. But I think the real takeaway I want people to say is, yes, we've obviously found other potential satellites beyond that. Ikkari North was a relatively new discovery, which was a blind target that we only made last summer. But if you just look at the area and all the little black lines of drill holes, there's still a lot of open space here for us to potentially make more discoveries. And that goes back to that chart that I showed you, that given time, we expect a system like we have discovered in Ikkari and all around these deposits will continue to grow. And so our job as a company and our exploration team is to continue, whilst we're de-risking Ikkari, is to continue to show that opportunity and how there could be a much longer and bigger opportunity here.
Well, that is the job. The job is to tell a growth story at all times, right? Whether you're 20 million bucks or in your case, 800, 900 million bucks, people have got to think that the shares have a ways to go here. And so that's why I keep pushing you on this. What do you do with 70 million bucks between now and, if not the end of this year, the end of next year, which tells that growth story, and why should we believe it? So, having a number of different targets is great. Ikkari is clearly one of the big discoveries of recent years. Not too many of those. It's how does the company play that? Do you say we'll take it to a certain point and we'll offload that, and then we're off chasing some of these other targets that we've got going on? Does that drive value for the company, value for the shareholders? Is that a sustainable business model, or do you want to just offload the whole thing to an other interested party? How do you play this, and how do you keep telling that growth story?
You can't run your business that you're offloading it to a party. Ultimately, I think investors come into the sector and they say it's the mining sector, just like forget it's a mining company or as exploration company, for instance, for a minute. We have an R&D. We have an R&D team in our business that is continuing to look and generate new ideas. That's our exploration business. But it's beyond that. It's an exploration team. It's like we're a continually improving R&D business that is generating new ideas and going to hopefully generate value through that. Ikkari has been a great discovery. It's come out of that process. To advance that to a state of cash, that business, that idea through to actually generating cash flow, we do have to put a bit of a fence around it and take it through get your permits to be able to make that get into production. But the important point is the R&D hasn't stopped. It's not as though we've stopped doing the R&D. We're continuing. It's not like, for instance, Tesla didn't stop when it produced the first type of Tesla, did it? It's gone on to the next one and the next one. It's got a team of people generating new ideas and new products that people will want to invest in and continue to grow the business. We get very locked in the resources sector to, putting a box around a discovery and a few drill holes and saying this is it and that's going to be a finite cash flow. It doesn't. It's not like that. You've got to keep on growing with this.
Right, and that's one way of doing it. And without getting too Jerry Maguire on you here, but show me the money, right? It's you've got something which is of huge value, of huge interest, and can throw off a ton of cash if it goes through the phases. Now you've got there quite quickly. Good. To where you are today quite quickly, but there's a ways to go. And, are you the guys to do that? In which case, as I asked earlier, do you kind of focus on that component and then bring up the R&D, slightly behind that? Or is this an R&D business, a company which is trying to, find these big potential assets, hold on to them for a bit, and then at some point monetize them, in which case, what does that look like? That's what I'm trying to get out of you. Otherwise, I'm in for a long wait.
Yeah. So we're building a business that's absolutely going to be able to move this to cash flow. That if you came to Finland and met the quality of the staff that work, versus the environmental permitting team that's been set up. We were just an exploration company when we first met. We still had like 20 people, but it was basically all geologists doing that. You now go to Finland, the business is transformed. You've got a phenomenal environmental team. We're just building up our engineering team. We have a great study manager that's joined us. We'll have a great metallurgist that's going to join the company, finance teams. So we will continue to spend the funds, going back to the most important thing, shareholders' money. We're going to spend that carefully. We're going to spend it in the right way to continue adding value to the business. And we're putting in place all the people. And the fortunate thing is that we've been able to attract really high quality people to work with this business that want to be in this, and they want the autonomy that I provide to them to work at this business. If you speak to me a lot, and it's really only me and Tom and Jeffrey outside Finland. In Finland is effectively our head office where all these people work and collaborate together every day, and And that's what's driving all the value. It's an incredibly impressive site to go and see now in terms of how that team has come together.
Okay, and so just finish off. Last question was, right, you got a bunch of money. What am I looking forward to hearing from you this year? Because as you said, it's been a kind of fallow marketing period for you. Are we going to see more of you?
Yeah, definitely. Exploration results for sure. As they come through the resource, which I mentioned before, we will be giving people updates on the whole permitting process. We're in a very public permitting process in Finland. There's a lot of public comment and stakeholder meetings going on locally in the country. So obviously that's going on. But obviously for investors, what are they probably looking for? Exploration results, the new resource, progress on the engineering studies and developments on that could make enhancements to the project. And then looking further out into the early part of next year, actually getting that pre-feasibility study data on the table, and ultimately us moving our permitting to the next stage, which is actually submitting the EIA to government, and ultimately then a permitting application after that's gone in.